Manchester United 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, and after the entertainment and the thrill of Thursday night, this one felt a little bit dull, a little bit disappointing in comparison. However, I don't think Manchester United played too badly, although I will come back to that comment a little bit later. But, just on face value, we had more possession, we had much more territory on the pitch, we had the field tilt, and we also had the expected goals in this game as well. I don't think United played too badly, but that also is probably a sign of some of the problems that we have in itself. Anyway, let's start off with the two starting 11s for this game. You can see on paper, both teams are not full strength. Wolves with closer to their full team. United quite rotational, of course, with recent Europa League games. But you can see the teams pretty much on paper matching the formations, 3-4-3 versus 3-4-3. And what that means is that Ruben Amorim has to be creative, because we know if this Manchester United side tries to go man-to-man with pretty much any team in the Premier League, we lack the physicality to really do so, particularly with someone like Eriksen in midfield. He's just not a player that is capable of going man-to-man across the pitch. So Ruben Amorim had to be quite creative, and I felt that in this game he was creative with his approach, because we can see as United try and play out in the first phase with the three centre-backs, it's quite easy for Wolves to match up 3 versus 3. And then the two Wolves midfielders are also going to back up the press, and United have trouble playing through this position. So what Amorim needed to do was find a way to overload that first line. Overload these positions here, so we have more players than what Wolves have and we can play through. And the way that he did this was by dropping Ugarte deep between the centre-backs, and then Fredrickson and Mazraoui would split much wider, now creating a new back four. And Wolves just couldn't really match us up there, because Andre in midfield didn't want to go all that way with Ugarte, because he's going to leave a big space in here. So it allowed United to create the overload in this position, and from there we were able to move the ball forward. The important thing also, though, was that we didn't completely vacate the midfield, because we had Kobe Mainoo in the front line, so he could drop deeper either to the right-hand side or to the left-hand side to get on the ball in these positions, and now Manchester United have plenty of options in the first phase. We can overload Wolves in these areas, and we can play through this first line. The problem was, because we've dropped the central midfielder deeper, we've then dropped an inside forward deeper. If you then look at sort of the attacking front four that we're left with two fullbacks, a raw striker and a raw winger. So United in these moments, yes, dropped deep quite nicely and overloaded, which was good. But it felt like then as we got forward, as a result, we lacked a little bit of threat. So I like to see the improvements in the first phase. I like to see Amorim finding solutions. That's brilliant. But I still think we need to seek different solutions. I think we have to try and use Onana more so we can push that extra midfielder up so we can carry a greater attacking threat. But regardless, it is always good to see us striving for solutions, even if I think they can be better. The more interesting part of the game for me, though, was the way we used the deep players, particularly Onana in goal, but also Hojlund up front. Hojlund has received a lot of criticism this season, and he received a lot of criticism for this match, and I'll get on to that a little bit later on. But in terms of his initial job, I actually think he did very, very well. Very, very well. Because Wolves, particularly when Ugarte is a little bit higher, Wolves are going to be man-to-man. That means that we don't have an obvious passing option, and that means wherever you go, Wolves are going to follow you. So if Dorgu goes up here, Aït-Nouri will follow him. If Dorgu drops deep, Aït-Nouri will follow him. It's the same all over the pitch, Wolves literally man for man. Now there is a way that you can be quite effective against a man-to-man press, and this was something that we discussed on the second channel yesterday. Aston Villa versus Newcastle. Villa did this really well with Ollie Watkins. Make sure to go subscribe to the second channel, by the way. But United did something very similar in this game. Because what we would do is, we would ask Hojlund to go a little bit longer, a little bit further up the pitch. We would go up to him, and because Wolves are looking to man mark us in these areas, it means there's spaces. So what we would do is push Hojlund further forward, use his hold-up play, which was much improved in this game. Much improved. There's a few instances, I'll put them on screen here. Hojlund holding the ball up really well, and then bringing someone else into play. So the attacking third stuff was annoying, and we will come to that, don't worry, we will come to that. But his hold-up play was actually really good, and it allowed United to pick up the second ball. Sometimes that was Garnacho in the space, sometimes it was Kobe Mainoo, sometimes it was Ugarte or Eriksen coming from a little bit deeper. But it did allow us to progress the ball quite effectively, and in terms of territory, it allowed us really quickly to cover a lot of ground, to gain a lot of ground. And for me, it's why this game was almost so frustrating with regards to Hojlund, because we're going to talk about his lack of effectiveness, his lack of threat in the final third shortly. But for me, the hold-up side of his game, and even the ability to run the channels in this match, showed the profile that he can be for us. If he develops well over the next 4 years, he can be that option that we go long to and he's going to make the ball stick. And it's a huge weapon in modern day football. If teams are going man to man, it's so difficult to play through. Sometimes you have got to go over it. But to do that, you do need a striker that can deal with the first contact. And in this game, Hojlund found a centre-back that he could do that against. And he did it really well. So this was actually a really promising sign for Hojlund. Now, if we move forward with the video to talk about what we were doing in the attacking third, things are going to get a little bit worse. But first of all, we need to figure out how we're going to get there. And we're going to get there because Wolves were relatively passive. We know that the flaws of this 5-2-3 or 3-4-3 or 5-4-1 shape, whatever you want to call it, we know the flaws of this shape more than most. We have experienced it. And Wolves had similar problems to what United often have. And that is that when they were dropping off into this shape, they were passive and allowed United to have the ball. But it's sort of okay for Wolves because they want to play in that way. You can tell they want to be a passive team that want to play in transition. So they're okay in these moments. But it does mean that United can take control. We've seen already the possession numbers were certainly in United's favour, and so was the territory as well. The problem for Wolves really wasn't when United had the ball in these positions. That's not an issue for them. It was more when we could find the half spaces. And the issue for Wolves is, as these players dropped into these spaces, so Garnacho on this side, or this side to be fair, they were quite rotational, or Kobbie Mainoo as well, as they pulled out into these spaces, you know, the two Wolves midfielders were distracted by our two midfielders. As Garnacho pulls into this space, the centre-backs didn't really want to go out there with them, so when Garnacho gets the ball here, Bueno would rather be tucked in with his back five, and the same for Gomez on the other side as well. So when Kobbie Mainoo picks the ball up, the centre-back doesn't want to come out here, he would rather be connected with his back line. And this is why United had some success. You can see Garnacho in particular, in this sort of space that we're talking about, picking the ball up and then driving at the Wolves' defence. And I think in moments, Garnacho had quite a good game. I think he did well he did a good job of sort of driving forward with the ball, getting United up the pitch. And of course, when you get forward into the final third, it's then all about committing numbers into the box. It's about putting dangerous deliveries into the middle and scoring goals. But that's something we're struggling with at the moment. And what I want to talk about here is, of course, individuals. For starters, Harry Amas. I thought he had a great game. Some really good deliveries in from the left-hand side. 2 or 3, which are really nice to see. Patrick Dorgu in open play, perhaps not particularly effective, but on the second phase of set pieces, we saw a couple of good deliveries. But my problem again, and I hate to keep coming back to this, is the personnel and the profiles that we've got in the front line. Because let's say Dorgu gets the ball on this side. Actually, we'll go to the other side. Let's say Amas has got the ball on the left-hand side. He picks the ball up and he wants to cross it in. And let's say Hojlund is in there on this occasion. The problem is, with the idea that we've got going on at the moment, there's a lack of players that instinctively want to attack the box. Kobbie Mainoo, he enjoys getting forward, but he's not a box-crashing midfielder. Garnacho isn't a box crasher. Yes, he's quite direct. He likes to go forward. But, you know, Dorgu on the far side, he's not someone who instinctively always attacks the back post. I think he's decent at it for a fullback. And that's what he is, right? He's a fullback. This isn't a winger coming in at the far post. A winger perhaps has slightly more attacking instinct. They want to sniff out these dangerous areas. So as the ball comes over, they would be in at the far post. But when you play a fullback there, they tend to hold out in this position a little bit more. And I guess the question for us really that we've got to try and figure out as fans is that because of the fact that we're using profiles that don't attack the box, so fullbacks, Kobbie Mainoo, who's a central midfielder, or is it because Amorim asks them to hold and be a bit more cautious because he's worried about the counter-attack? You know, is it when a ball comes in from the left-hand side, is the reason that Dorgu doesn't go in there because he's a fullback, so doesn't have the instinct, or because Amorim wants him to hold a little bit deeper so we can secure the second phase and pick the ball up and go again? That is something that we need to figure out, but we do have a problem where even when we combine well, even when we move into good positions, which I think we saw in this game, there's a lack of numbers in that penalty area. And of course, there's a lot of criticism for Rasmus Hojlund, and he deserves that. But I think one thing I want to make really clear before we talk about Hojlund is he shouldn't be the only one in there. For me, there should never be a situation where we're delivering into the box and our striker is the only option. That shouldn't happen for me. There should be players in and around it. We saw it later on in the game when Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount came on. They both had a pretty good opportunity apiece, I would say. So again, that asks the question: is that because Amorim took the handbrake off and went for it because we were a goal down, or because we had more attacking players on the pitch? These are the questions that we need to try and answer. But at least later in the game, we did have those options in the box. Earlier on, it was just Hojlund. He was very isolated. He was by himself in the middle there. But we can only defend him so much. In the past, we've spoken about a lack of service, an inability to get the ball towards him. You can't make that comment in this game. There was a couple of really good balls. Like I said, Dorgu put 2 great deliveries in from the right-hand side. Amas put 2 great deliveries in from the left. And Garnacho as well was really, really selfless with some of his final third work. Like I said, he had this bit of time on the edge to drive with the ball, to pick it up, to be aggressive, to be dangerous. And he was selfless. He was looking for cutbacks. He was trying to find people. Hojlund, he was just never in that space. There's an amazing ball that was flashed across the box. And again, he's just not there. I think we are getting to a point now where people are becoming rather fed up of Rasmus Hojlund, and I completely understand it. This is a striker, a young striker that we spend a lot of money on, and we all spoke about all the potential that he had, the profile that he had being such a good one, and he hasn't developed, he hasn't progressed. I think last season we saw a player that did progress as the year went on. I think he got better and better. This season we haven't seen that, and a lot of people deserve a lot of criticism for that. You've got to look at the football club. Again, always the football club, right? Because how many players have we had in the last 10 years that have come into the club full of potential and hype, and they've never lived up to it? If that keeps happening, there's a problem at the club. You've also got to look at the manager, the coaches. It's their job to improve players, to help them, to coach them. Not just to manage tactics, but to coach individuals. Are we seeing that with Hojlund? I don't know. But also, Hojlund himself deserves criticism because some of it is basic stuff. You know, some of these deliveries into the box, they just should be his bread and butter. I think there's a huge confidence issue there. Of course, we have to address that because it does play a big part in sport. People will always go, you can't put it on confidence, but to an extent you can, because confidence is huge. We've all seen it. These strikers that go ages without scoring a goal, then they get one and the floodgates open. They score 5 in their next 6. That always happens. It's happened throughout the history of football with centre forwards. So it is a thing. Confidence is a thing for strikers. It plays a huge part, particularly a young striker at United. But still, there has to be more. It has to be better. Because yesterday, there were genuinely some very, very decent deliveries into the box. And I would say, ultimately, our work in the penalty area cost us this game. Because I think across the rest of the pitch, we were better. Defensively, I think we did a good job of restricting Wolves' key players. Like Cunha, for example, was always forced to pick up the ball in these areas where he couldn't turn and drive at United. So defensively, I think we did pretty well. On the ball, we progressed very well. We got to the final third quite easily. And some of the combination work in the final third was good. Our expected goals, in the end, may not have been too high. But you've got to think the amount of great positions we got into and didn't end up getting the shot off. Something has to change. Is it Amorim taking the handbrake off, letting these players be more aggressive? Is it playing more aggressive players? Is it needing better players in the summer? Perhaps more experienced players. I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think the solutions are in the comments down below, because I think apart from that, we are finished for today. Because, you know, we all know this was a meaningless Premier League game, so the intensity was a little bit lower than what you will often see. So you only learn so much about your team. I liked what Amorim was trying to do in the first phase with adaptations and rotations to allow us to play through the pitch a bit easier, although I still think there are better solutions out there. Final third needs a lot of work from everyone. But there were good moments. Let's not forget that. United were by far the better team. We should have won this game 2-3-0, to be honest with you. So it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. So, yeah, we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, subscribe, get notifications on. Check out the Discord server in the description. And also the second channel as well to see how some other teams are looking to approach the Premier League right now. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.